Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to say to my colleagues on the Republican side, we don't need lectures from them about America's national security. You know, when it comes to forcing their terrible policies on the American people, they say yes, yes, yes to President Trump. But when it comes to holding President Trump accountable and protecting American democracy, all they say is niet. Clearly, House Republicans' desire to protect President Trump has clouded their judgment and caused them to lose sight of what's at stake, the security and integrity of our democracy. Mr. Speaker, President Trump's own CIA director, our former colleague, CIA Director Mike Pompeo, recently admitted that Russia is currently working to undermine the upcoming election and has been doing so for decades. And just yesterday, President Trump refused to impose defense and intelligence sanctions on entities purchasing Russian military equipment. In July, Congress passed an overwhelmingly bipartisan bill requiring President Trump to impose defense and intelligence sanctions on entities purchasing Russian military equipment. His decision yesterday to refuse to do so tells us all we need to know about where his loyalties lie. And still, Mr. Speaker, all the other side continues to do day after day is assault the rule of law. They've led an all-out assault on our Department of Justice and on our FBI to smear Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation, attempting to tarnish the credibility of our federal law enforcement along the way and sowing doubt and confusion about the very ability of anyone in law enforcement to conduct an impartial investigation. And let's not forget that we're not talking about some hypothetical investigation. Here are the facts. The President's former National Security Advisor has pled guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with the Russian ambassador. The President's former Foreign Policy Advisor pled guilty after he lied about his contacts with the Russian government. And the President's former campaign manager has been indicted by a grand jury for, among other things, conspiracy against the United States of America. Now the Republicans are trying to whip up a controversy out of thin air with a misleading cherry-picked memo written by their own staff, which contains significant inaccuracies and omissions that misrepresent the underlying intelligence. Associate Attorney General Stephen Boyd stated, and I quote, "We believe it would be extraordinarily reckless for the committee to disclose such information publicly without giving the department and the FBI the opportunity to review the memorandum and to advise the committee of the risk of harm to national security and to ongoing investigations that could come from the public release. Indeed, we do not understand why the committee would possibly seek to disclose classified and law enforcement sensitive information without first consulting with the relevant members of the intelligence community," end quote. Mr. Speaker, Republicans are doing this in a ridiculous attempt to discredit an entire investigation which has already found a serious effort to attack our democracy. This is a deeply, deeply irresponsible attempt to undermine Special Mueller's investigation, regardless of the profound damage that it does to our democratic institutions and national security agencies. It's offensive to the nation, and it is just plain wrong. I would remind my Republican colleagues that we are here to uphold the rule of law, not the rule of Trump. And I understand that in this chamber that there are powerful political incentives to circle the wagons amongst my Republican friends around this White House. But the truth is the truth, and there is nobody in this country, including the President of the United States, who should be above the law. And, Mr. Speaker, I would say to my colleagues that when we're talking about defending the national security of our country, what has gone on in this chamber these last few days, in my opinion, is a threat to our national security, and I reserve my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlelady